on our live fake television show, Debatable, where we await Domonique Foxworth, Bill, who told us, I'm going to be there. He said, I'm going to be there. And I ask you, is Domonique Foxworth here?
He is not here. We can narrow that down. Of the places he is at, this is not one of them.
Correct.
Did Domonique go out and get a pack of cigarettes? We can't say for sure. Did he just abandon us for another fake television show? Not out of the question.
At this rate, honestly, as he builds his media empire, Alabaster, and why? Here's the problem now, Bill.
Yeah.
As I try to complain about Domonique with Alabaster, they're in cahoots now.
Yep.
That's
This
true.
is now turning into sponsored content for another.
But I want to point out, Pablo, you and I are also in cahoots. So we're forming cliques within the debatable structure for 2v2 here.
That's right. We're tag teaming, and I feel good about our chances now that it's just 2 on Alabaster. That's all you got, buddy.
We are going to gang up on him with the help of a delicious Corona, of course.
Absolutely. Hey, Alabaster, how do you feel to be betrayed by your podcast co-host like this on your other show that you do together?
I'm not gonna say I'm betrayed. We're on to the Barnwell and Pablo show. I mean, you got to realize, like, this is a triangle friend group, and you can't talk trash when the other 2 points of the triangle are closer together at this point.
Oh,
wow. There is the seed of discourse. The seed of, if only the seed of discourse had been sown. Alas, it is only the seed of discord as we filibuster.
Yo, what up? Hey.
I could hear someone who either is doing a very good Domonique impression or is actually Domonique. I'm hoping it's a Domonique impersonator, frankly, but I'm willing to accept the real deal.
It does feel like over time, Domonique and a Domonique impersonator have become impossible to tell apart. Like, I just don't know. Is he just doing Domonique, the character, at this point?
I don't know what Dominique's catchphrases are, so I can't do anything other than just sound like him.
Sorry, I'm late. Are 2 of the Domonique catchphrases?
Nah,
That's right.
I apologize for nothing.
There he is.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm here. Instead of apologizing for being late, I will say you're welcome that I even showed up to this party. My presence is a gift. That's what it is.
That's right. Thank you, Domonique.
This man gets 1 podcast and he turns into a nightmare.
Seriously, what a diva. Thank you for deigning to switch from the third back to the first person when talking about yourself, by the way. I appreciate that.
Your hair looks good, Pablo.
Thanks. I didn't shower.
Wow,
Alabaster, where are we starting?
Personal attack there.
That was just a shot at Barnwell. That's all.
It was for sure.
Oh no,
Guys, let's pivot back to some football. Let's start. This Thursday night football game is a banger. I think we've all been excited about the AFC West. We've all been excited about Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, laser-armed quarterbacks. And my question to you, do you expect the Chargers to prove that they are on the Chiefs' level tonight?
I mean, this does feel like a game where there is like this heavyweight matchup poster between 2 people who, for the record, are absolutely like not competing directly against each other. So I'm curious if you guys feel like that framing is even fair. Like, what's this game actually about? Is it actually just about these quarterbacks?
It ain't about fairness. It's about these quarterbacks for everybody who cares. If I'm being completely honest with you, the analysis, if you could do like blind analysis, I think the Chargers are better. However, I'm still high on Mahomesiness, and I can't never get off of that. You disagree? Like, from a talent standpoint, the Chargers are not a more talented team?
I do disagree that the Chargers are not a more talented team, especially Domonique Foxworth, without Keenan Allen or J.C. Jackson, who I don't know if you've heard of. He's a really good cornerback. He's not
went to
playing
Maryland.
in
Did you
this
know
game.
that? He's a Terp.
Well, best cornerback in Terp history. J.C. Jackson and Keenan Allen are not playing. I mean, I don't want to say. Yeah. I didn't want to take the shot, but you put it out there for me. And he's not playing in this game, and that's a big difference maker for the Los Angeles Chargers. And I think if we're just basing our idea of what happened in week 1, which maybe we should not, The Chiefs were much more impressive in week 1, blowing out the Cardinals, whereas the Chargers played well, certainly, but they were exposed in stretches by the Las Vegas Raiders and their passing attack, which, by the way, Domonique, Chiefs are pretty good at throwing the football themselves.
I'm just so happy that now I don't have to feel like I'm just being a Patrick Mahomes homer, a Patrick Mahomer. Okay. Like, now you've convinced me that I'm picking the Chiefs. I picked the Chiefs yesterday. I picked the Chiefs this morning. I think the Chiefs are going to win. But here? I thought I just lied to myself, and now you convinced me. I guess what it boils down to me is the reason why I said the blind.
Yes. Why? Explain this.
Yeah. So I think the difference between Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes is smaller than we are inclined to think of, because we've seen Patrick Mahomes do things in bigger situations than Herbert. But on a play-to-play, game-to-game basis, Justin Herbert is very close to Patrick Mahomes. So I also believe that offensive line, when it comes down to it, they both have good offensive lines. The receiver matchup, yeah, Keenan Allen's out, but none of those Kansas City Chiefs receivers are receivers that were like, oh my gosh, that's a Tyreek Hill type. I think that Derwin James across from Travis Kelce is a draw, which is a win for the Chargers. And I also think the two pass rushers that the Chargers have, the only way you can stop either of these quarterbacks, I feel like, is being able to get consistent pressure from there on them. And I know that those guys can get pressure in a way that I don't think that I know that Chris Jones can and the Chiefs offensive line can or defensive line can consistently. So that's why I come to my conclusion. I'm no Bill Barnwell, but I know a little something about the old piggy skin.
But wait. Bill, for the podcast audience, which again Dominique hates, but is perhaps fueling our entire career at this point. What Bill Barnwell has been doing while listening to the best cornerback in Harvard Business School history has been make a variety of remarkable faces.
Yep. So I've been doing the Birdman hand gesture. I'm ready.
Yeah. What about what Dominique said? I'm just now Jerry Springer. Bill, what about what Dominique said makes you angry?
I'm just generally angry at Dominique in so many ways for so many reasons. But what I would say is the Chiefs have also supplemented their front four this offseason. They did a good job against Kyler Murray and company last week. No, they don't have someone with the name brand value of a Khalil Mack. You're getting a Khalil Mack and a Neiman Marcus. The Chiefs don't have Neiman Marcus pass rushers. But in addition to Chris Jones, in addition to Frank Clark, they signed Carlos Dunlap away from the Seahawks. He was a first-round pick on George Karlaftis. They have a deeper front four than they did a couple of years ago. And so I think that's the general story for the Chiefs on the whole in what they did this offseason. It's not just, that they got rid of Tyreek Hill, that they don't have Tyrann Mathieu anymore. Those are good players. They're going to miss those guys, but they're deeper now. It's not a wide receiver core where you can just double Kelce and double Hill the way the Bengals did and leave no one else open, because now you have Juju. Now you have Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Now you have other options. Same thing on the front four. It's not just Chris Jones or bust. And so to me, I think the Chiefs are a deeper team than the Chargers are, even if the Chargers have more star power.
Yeah, I think depth matters at the end of the year. Depth matters in the playoffs. Oof. Depth is not as important in week 2 of the season. And Juan Thornhill is a player that I absolutely love, and he's finally fully back to at least looking kind of healthy or closer to healthy than he's been in a while, and his impact on the game is great. He's a safety for the Chiefs that is he's not Tyrann Mathieu at his peak, but he has versatility that I think allows their defense to do some special things. So they're close team-wise, and maybe I'm just intoxicated by the name brands on the Chargers defense. But if I had to pick one of those defenses to go up against, I'm going up against the Chiefs. You disagree with that? I'm sorry. Jerry, does Jerry need to mediate this?
Yeah, but we're bringing someone out from backstage, by the way.
Do you remember of Jenny Jones, how they had the soundproof booth in the back? Do you remember that? It was like an old television.
Yes.
Nobody watched Jenny Jones after school but me?
No. I got you. By the way, who is the security guard who became like the mayor himself?
Steve?
Or like a host?
Was it a Steve?
Oh, yeah, Steve Wilco or Wilcox.
Wilcox. That's
Wilcox.
Alabaster.
Yeah.
Alabaster is the least well-suited person to play that role I know, and he is absolutely playing that role today. But I did want to jump in with this, right? Like we talked. I mean, the question, if I may begin to pretend to respect it, right, is like, can this team, the Chargers, feel like they are on the level of the Chiefs? Correct me if I'm wrong, but like the last 3 times these teams played, every game has been a banger, right? Yep. All of these games have been close. All of them have been like 1-score games. And I believe the Chiefs are up 2-1 on the Chargers. And I know this year's team is different from all those years teams, et cetera, et cetera. But it feels like the Chargers should feel like this is a reasonable question.
I'm sorry, Bill. Before you go, this has to be addressed. I let Alabaster get away with clumsily saying banger, and then Pablo too. Like, it got worse. Can we ban you guys from calling football games bangers? It's a banger. We are bangers. Everybody's banging.
Domonique, bangers are fire. Bangers are fire, and you are mid.
Oh no! Boomer. Oh no!
I'm sorry.
Pablo got you.
Go for it, Bill. I've never been cooler in my life than being called mid by a nerd.
By a nerd.
By a Harvard undergraduate. The best cornerback in Harvard undergraduate history to me, Pablo Torre. Let me ask you guys. Let me frame
Andrew
it this
Berry, maybe, embarrassingly. Anyway, continue. Yes.
1-2. Let me frame it this way. If the Chargers do win this game, do you think the conversation is over and they're now at that level moving forward?
Yes. I mean, whether I believe it to be so or not, these statement primetime single games have disproportionate impact on the way that we view them. If they win this game by a little bit or by a lot, they are moving to the top of just about everyone's like internal emotional power rankings.
If the answer to that question, Bill, is no, then we are in trouble as an industry. Yeah. Like, if we're not going to take away from this game something profound that's going to allow us to trash Patrick Mahomes and boost Justin Herbert, what are we doing?
I'm concerned because remember last year we saw that Bills-Chiefs game in the regular season and the Bills blew out the Chiefs. It was the statement of all statement games. And then 2 weeks later, they lost to the Jaguars. Like, to me, the Chargers are the kind of team where when everything goes right for them, they can be the best team in football. They can be the most impressive team against anybody else on the field. And they can also have games where they look like the worst team in football. And to be honest, in that Raiders game last week was kind of both. We saw them really dominate the Raiders in the first half. And then for the entire second half, they were hanging on for dear life as the Raiders tried to get back in that football game.
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. If they win this week, we are high on this. A Thursday game, we got a couple extra days to be high on them. We'll be high on them all week until they drop a winnable game. And it's the last game matters the most. I feel like we left last season or we entered this season high as hell on the Bills because the last time we saw them, they played good enough to win. And they played an incredible game. Like they had the
and now the Rams are shit. Like, come on, update your takes, Bill.
Yeah, week to week,
Bills
baby.
best ever, Rams dog shit. Chiefs possibly great, but after tonight will be also dog shit.
Wow, got 3 curses in 30 seconds from Pablo.
He's aggressive. He's feeling himself.
You see what you did, Domonique? You didn't let him say the words he wanted to say, and now he's just swearing everywhere.
No, this is when you start chanting my name like you would chant Jerry. Come on, you're supposed to get the cues. Alabaster, I feel like we got a lot of football that should have made you very happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's okay. You guys did okay.
Just mid.
I mean, you guys are op.
Ops. Robert, speaking of ops.
All right, let's move on.
Yes.
You didn't like that? You didn't want to use my segue?
No, it was just,
Oh, it's too serious. Got you. My bad.
All good.
I'm black. I can make jokes, so chill out. Relax.
Dominique handling the fun part of the next segment on the show.
Yeah, as a person who cosplays as a civil rights activist, Dominique, I'm excited to hear to discuss a serious topic that we're pivoting to.
Okay. Question for you guys, and this is because of how the news broke yesterday and the response to it. Do you think the NBA will revisit their punishment for Robert Sarver?
No, I don't. I mean, I think that what is dangerous to the I'm thinking about this as the NBA, right? Like they should revisit this. They should have visited it differently in the first place. But what the NBA has, Dominique, I'm curious as to your perspective because you worked at the Players Union and now we have all of these guys who are very powerful within the union, but it's really more about LeBron and CP3 voicing their opinions here. But they're saying that fining Robert Sarver $10 million, suspending him for a year, despite all these allegations of racism and misogyny over 17 years, that's not enough. But if you're the NBA, like, so much of this is about precedent to me and not wanting to set it. The idea that they would, as a corporation, set a new precedent by ousting an owner who they decided to not oust like days before feels unfathomable to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they should revisit it. I don't think they should have visited it in the first place. Like the structure of this organization is such that the NBA is beneath Robert Sarver. He is one of the 30 owners of teams who decides where the NBA goes, how much Adam Silver is going to be compensated, if Adam Silver is going to work there at all. So this punishment on the owners coming from the league is laughable. And it's the same for the NBA and the NFL and any other major league. They are not incentivized to be fair or just, because the people who are overseeing them are a bunch of people who are just like them, who who have no desire in creating a world that is closer to fair, a world where they can actually be held accountable. So it should be the work of an external party seeing over this and making a decision about something like this. And it's unfortunate that it's an organization and we think about them as a team often and we think about the players, but it's an organization with a lot of employees that don't have the money or leverage or latitude or flexibility that the players may have. And those people, not just for Phoenix, but for Phoenix, they get a year off of this BS before he's coming back. But also one of the major reasons why you want to punish people, I believe, is as a deterrent for other people. So I'm not sure this is a deterrent for any other owners. It's like, all right, what's the price for decades of racism and sexism? All right, a fraction of my enormous net worth and a year vacation. Yeah, I'm not going to change the way I act. This is a speeding ticket.
No,
I get speeding tickets every now and then, and I still speed because the punishment is not enough for me to chill out because I got to get to where I got to get to.
I believe that confessions of crimes undebatable are not punishable by law. Thankfully. So Domonique might be okay. But Bill, when he's talking about okay, here are all these other employees, one of the key parts of the story that jumped out to me when Baxter Holmes reported all this stuff that got this whole saga started in the first place was that people were afraid to go to HR in the building at the actual office because of what that would suggest to people they were terrified of that they worked for. And that is a symptom of a far larger disease. And yes, this is about dozens and dozens of people, women, people of color, everyone who clearly had seen some version of a red flag pop up only to see it. Okay, yeah, a year. Come back 365 days from now.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, whether the NBA wants to present it as such, this is not an isolated case. It's not something that happened 20 years ago. Not that it would be okay 20 years ago, but this is incidents were happening with this case as recently as 2021. There were improprieties happening within the organization. And I think the weird thing, or maybe not weird is the wrong word, but maybe the distressing thing about Adam Silver's comments after all this is the idea that Robert Sarver was sorrowful, that he admitted making a mistake. When, number one, when our colleague Baxter Holmes reported this, he said it was false reporting and was looking forward to denying it and that it was all lies. And our Adrian Wojnarowski reported after the punishment was levied that Robert Sarver argued that there should be no punishment, that there should be no $10 million fine, there should be no year suspension. So not that this would make it okay, but there's not even that idea that there's an apology happening here or a meaningful apology happening here, or that someone is admitting to making a mistake. It's more just, oh, I got caught, and I guess this is the punishment for me getting caught, not that I should be punished for getting caught.
There is this quote, Domonique, off of what Bill said, and Alabaster put this down, and I want to quote Adam Silver here because this is a quote that says so much about what the actual power dynamic is here, right? He said this, when asked by Howard Beck, why when a normal person would get fired for doing this, would an owner not face anything close to the same punishment? And Adam Silver said that there are particular rights here to someone who owns an NBA team as opposed to someone who is an employee. And that is something that I think is intuitively accurate. I don't think any of us are under the illusion that an owner is treated differently than an employee. But it's funny that he did just say it out loud.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because the whole notion here is that this is not a normal corporation. This is a sport, as we care about in all sports, that also cares about justice and fairness and end racism and diversity and inclusion and all of these things. And Adam Silver's like, yeah, when you're the boss, you can get away with a lot. They let you do a lot of things when you're the boss. It echoes of other quotes we've heard from powerful people.
You would expect someone with that much power, we would have higher expectations of. And I think that oftentimes when we do these sports topics, they happen to mirror our society as a whole. And it's frustrating and disappointing that we live in a place that, I mean, it's sad, but true. Like, you have a lot of money, you have a lot of power, you're allowed to get away with a lot more when you should expect people with that amount of power to like wield it more justly, and they should have higher expectations, because the perks that come with being a billionaire are seemingly endless. And normally you have to pay for perks. And you would think that the price for those perks on the other end is like a higher bar, particularly when you are running an organization. It's like, yeah, there are jokes that you can make with your coworker that is your same level that would be inappropriate for the boss to make. Like, it seems obvious because for the boss to make with you. And if he wants to make these jokes, he can go hang out with his billionaire friends and they can make them elsewhere. But when you are in that capacity, the same way Adam Silver said there are different rights for the owner than employee, you would think that there are different expectations and a higher bar for the owner and employees, which it's not. And that's true across society, and it sucks.
But what's so, I mean, like, just what's darkly funny about all of this, right, is that the ultimate punishment we are calling for to that point is for Robert Sarver to be paid like $3 billion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the punishment. Lose your team, which is to say sell your team and reap the value of the ever increasing price given the media rights economy.
That just opened my eyes to a whole nother thing that's probably happening that we don't know about. Is there are probably a ton of billionaires who want to own a team, and they just get so giddy and just flood Adam Silver's inbox as soon as some other owner gets in trouble. It's like, hey, pick me.
Oh, I have no doubt that in Robert Sarver's brain, allegedly, he feels like a victim.
Oh, of course.
I have no doubt
1,000%.
He is under attack, not just by the media, but all of the other rich guys. You're totally right.
Yeah,
you
like,
are
they
circling
just want
like
to take my team.
Vultures.
Yeah.
Yep.
They want to give me $3 billion.
How dare they?
I wonder, when it comes to what happens next over the course of the next year. I mean, it certainly didn't seem like Adam Silver wanted to pursue anything beyond the punishment we saw here. And so it feels like he's almost sort of daring the players who I think he knew, or at least he knows now, were going to come out and be very critical of this punishment to sort of make the next move. And I guess I wonder, is that likely to happen? It's certainly not fair for it to come on the players.
This is what's really interesting, because Adam Silver's talent this entire time has been to make sure that the star players are on the same agenda that he is. That is his gift that Roger Goodell, that Rob Manfred, that Gary Bettman obviously do not share. He has been somebody who. What are you saying, Dominique? I'm saying that I'm saying is that
the power. I get what you're saying, but the reason why it matters in the NBA is the power of the NBA player is much different than that of the NFL player and the baseball player. So, like, Adam Silver is doing this. It's not that the other ones can't; it's that they don't have to.
I would argue that they don't have to, but also that they can't. I would say that I've seen nothing that suggests that they have the ability that Adam Silver has been able to show, which is to be this savvy politician playing both sides of the aisle here. And LeBron saying this and Chris Paul saying this does feel like a marked departure from something that I would have assumed Adam Silver had talked to him about, like, behind the scenes. And maybe there's a 3D chess game where everybody is saying stuff they all knew they were going to say, and this has all been planned out. But this does feel like a noticeable rift in terms of how power is wielded.
And now I guess I wonder, what happens next? I mean, does Chris Paul come out and say, hey, I want to be traded. I don't want to play for a Robert Sarver-owned team? Do the max players, the most successful players in the NBA, together come out and say, hey, we're not going to play when we come to Phoenix. We're all going to sit out. and you're not going to get the money from us being stars playing at your arena. Like, it's unreasonable to ask players to do that. It's not logical that players would do that, but it feels like the only thing that can happen to make this worse is for players to sort of wield their power and inflict some sort of further punishment on the Suns and on Robert Sarver.
Domonique is just frowning so hard.
I don't know. It's frustrating and
that's not fair
and disappointing. But yeah, no, I get where you're coming from. I think the expectations on the player, Adam Silver, the Donald Sterling thing happened because of public pressure. Adam Silver, if he wants to do like the right thing, he needs that public pressure to come up and force their hand. But you also have to admit that
he didn't though.
Yeah, even then it was sort of like, and this has been interesting because I also consider, I mean, look, it's fair to say that Adam Silver took a harsher hammer to Donald Sterling. He banned him for life from the NBA, but he did not force him, Domonique, to sell the team. What happened, of course, was that Shelley Sterling, Donald Sterling's ex-wife, got him declared mentally incapacitated. So she took control of the team and then she sold it, which was a very clever 3D chess move by the NBA to, again, evade actually doing the thing that they wanted credit for doing.
Yeah, I mean, it also, the owners are not only incentivized to bury this and put it away because they don't want this same attention on them, but they're also incentivized from financial standpoint because they are like a legal cartel essentially. And so the league revenue, like they don't want a particular like they don't want fans to stop going to this game. They don't want fans to view any of their teams as trash and like bad and not be a part of. So like they would have to for the owners to turn to a point where they want to get rid of Robert Sarver, because that's what's going to have to happen. The owners are going to have to vote him out. You would have to make it so it is so painful for them financially that it's easier to get rid of him than to not. And I don't know if you can do that because Robert Sarver has been threatening to talk. Like he said, y'all doing some of the same stuff. Y'all just as bad as me. So I can't imagine that there is enough pain, financial pain, to make all these guys, and maybe it's not all 29 of them, but I don't know what they need. They need 2/3 vote probably, but I'm sure they don't got 2/3 or I'm sure there's not 1/3 of them who is like thinking, let's not. There's more than a third of them.
I don't think these tweets, these criticisms from media members has done anything to sway the owners who were clearly aware of this before we were aware of it from changing their mind. I mean, to me, like, look, Alabaster, to be the most cynical version of myself here, Adam Silver is doing exactly what Adam Silver should do if he believes that this story does not have the legs, right? Does the story have the legs? He said it himself at that press conference. There's no tape. Again, in one of those instances where he just says the quiet part out loud, kind of like, there's no tape here. There's no meme. There's no thing that can be played over and over again, like Donald Sterling and V. Stiviato. And so what do we have here? We have kind of abstract evidence, relatively speaking, and people getting angry. And I don't think that's going to sustain because, again, the memory of any given person in 2022 is like a literal goldfish. So.
What were we talking about?
Great.
I forgot.
Ready to move on?
Yes.
Sure.
All right, guys. Last question. How does it make you feel that Roger Federer is retiring and won't be able to play one final slam?
I don't believe anybody's retiring anymore.
Yeah.
Can I just say that?
Yeah.
None of the retirements are real. Everything's fake. Like Serena just said, actually,
she said
play more.
Tom Brady set the trend. I mean, Roger's just running from my beloved Alcaraz now. That's it. He's scared. He's terrified.
And he should be. He should be running away from a guy who is absolutely able to catch up with him.
Oh, yes.
Like, not close.
That's the extent of my tennis knowledge. I said one name. I'll say a couple more.
You did.
Tiafoe, Coco Gauff. Who else we got? Djokovic.
See, you're better at this with football. You did the Warren Thornhill thing. You're like, Warren Thornhill is a player I love. And then you listed some things about safeties. And that made you look really smart.
I know how to do this.
You know how to do this. So with tennis, all you have to do is just do the same thing where it's like Coco Gauff lists some tennis things like, front court. I don't know.
See, you're not good at it either.
Classic.
You're not good
I'm
at it.
I'm not on TV. You are. You should be better at this than I am, frankly.
Right, let me try again. Coco Gauff. Backhand, forehand, speed, serve, court management.
Alabaster
I hop in
Alabaster
for a
is
second?
I am so
so
sorry,
mad.
Alabaster.
He's
We're
so
going to
mad.
file
Because he
it.
I
loves
want to talk
tennis.
about the human element to me here is more interesting even than the tennis part. Like we all know Federer is Barishnikov, he's Michael Jordan, he's this graceful athlete. But that part is less interesting to me than the fact that the most venerated player in the history of men's tennis has spent the last 2 years trying to rehab from multiple knee surgeries and has put off this retirement that we all know is going to happen one day. But he's put it off because he doesn't want to retire. He wants to keep playing tennis. And this is an admission that he can't. And I think that's like an interesting emotional state that we don't always see with guys of that level. He's not going out to be Willie Mays stumbling in center field one more time. He's just saying, I can't do it. I'm gone.
For now, until 6 weeks from now, he changes his mind and comes back and plays. But for this 6 weeks, we can say, I think what makes that contrast so interesting is that Federer has always been like the smoothest athlete, like there's nothing to trip him up on. He has been the least controversial major superstar of his generation. Even guys like Brady or even women like Serena, like the controversies that have surrounded them on the court or on the field have never been the case with Federer. He's always been like this, like he's the luxury of all luxuries. He's so the Rolls Royce. Right. He's so Swiss. Like he is this, he is the guy where when you go to the airport, you see him on the luxury watch edge and you think, I will never have that watch. But Roger Federer probably has 6 of those watches. And there's that smoothness. It's so weird to contrast that with what we've seen over the past 5 years where he has broken down. He hasn't been able to play. That is extremely, extremely weird to see.
Yeah, Domonique is just
giggling,
truly just laughing at all of the watches that he owns and how you will never have even a fraction of the time kept that he has.
Yes.
Oh man, I only got a few watches. Relax. I don't know who does Roger push watches for? Timex? I don't know.
I can't even name is he a Hublot guy?
Oh. Okay, I like that.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't have one of those.
Yeah, we're just we're gonna name watch brands like we just named tennis players.
I don't have any of those. So
Hublot.
I mean,
Time.
the idea that that you're being forced out, like I do find that, or not forced out, you're choosing to leave before you are forced out because you just can't do it anymore. For somebody at this stature, it does seem relatively rare. I guess Barry Sanders is like the last time. But Barry Sanders didn't dominate football the way that Roger was one of the most dominant tennis players. So, yeah, it's a great life to be awesome at something that everyone loves. I can understand why people would hesitate to walk away from it. I walked away from football before I was forced out. I wasn't great. So I don't know what it's like to be Roger Federer. I assume that also football, like other sports, you leave so much younger, like traditionally, and like it's a part of your life and it's hard to separate from that and find like something to fill that in a new identity. It's so much later for Roger. It makes me feel like it's so much harder to figure out. And he hasn't entered that stage yet. But when you're younger, you don't know that stage is coming. You like think it's not going to be you, and then you go for it. He has to be. I feel like he's old enough to feel like, oh, what's on the other side of this is dim, and I don't know if I want to go there, and that is scary. I might rather like flop around on my bad knees for a couple more weeks or for a couple more years, and then just be like celebrated and be a shadow of my former self.
Well, Alabaster, this is what I want to ask you. I mean, we joked about this immediately off the top of this question, but I do feel like if I was Roger Federer and I was watching Carlos Alcaraz do all of those things, I would feel dead.
Yeah.
Like I would feel like my body had desiccated. Like I cannot possibly do this anymore. And by the way, we're in a sport and a time because Nadal and Djokovic are in this sort of like three kings kind of dynamic. Everybody is they're pushing back on father time across all sports in ways that we haven't considered.
Yeah.
But I just wonder, actually, Alabaster, as a tennis nerd, do you think the emergence of someone like Alcaraz actually has a material effect on Federer's understanding of himself?
I think it's, in certain ways, a great compliment to Roger Federer. This is sort of the next in line. Someone wearing offensive, the first guy since Roger Federer did that 20 years ago. Do I think that the appearance of the next chosen one per se is part of why he's comfortable retiring. No, I think Roger Federer wanted to play tennis, and his body just can't do it anymore.
But I think the appearance of Alcaraz, tennis is not basketball or football, whereas potentially you could find a way to hide somebody. Throw him out there.
That's what I mean. I'm like, again, me as not
scared.
Roger Federer.
He could be scared to go out there.
I would be so afraid of every draw that I entered that he would be the guy that I have to be contrasted against.
Yes and no. But the one thing I'd push back on that a tiny bit quickly is that, of course, Federer could go out and lose in first rounds and be embarrassed because that's what happens when most people leave the tour. But there's also the Andy Murray thing. This guy basically is, one of the great players of all time. He's playing with the metal hip, and he's going out there for the love of the game. And he's losing in a lot of first rounds, but he's still this venerated superstar who gets to show up and play in front of the crowd one more time. And I think Roger's telling us his body can't even do that.
I mean, this is the guy who famously in the David Foster Wallace essay about Roger Federer was held up as the manifestation of human life. And to have that guy be retiring now just feels very depressing to me.
Y'all got extra minutes out of us. We're done. You don't get no free minutes.
I feel like we name checked David Foster Wallace.
Dude,
we can no longer pretend.
I worked for Grantland. I have to mention David Foster Wallace at all times. That's in my contract from a decade ago.
There's a copy of Infinite Jest on that shelf that I've never read, just so you understand where I'm coming from.
That's fair.
Domonique has returned to his fake protest. He's going to go put on his tie. Yeah.